Hey, welcome to Get Into Market. I'm Nate here with special co-host Kyrie. How are you doing, Kyrie?
Hey Nate, I'm doing great. Thanks for having me.
Yes, was super shocked he said yes to being co-host. John is, I believe he said, unavoidably detained from the one phone call we were able to get from him, but he'll be back hopefully next week. So we're lucky enough to get Kyrie on. We have a fun episode topic that I think is going to be really great for Kyrie to be on, and the topic is SKO. So we'll just get right into it. Well, before I get right into it, I guess both of us are just coming off of SKO season. SKO zone. It should have like a name. SKO zone. I like SKO zone.
I like SCOVID. That's my favorite.
SCOVID.
That refers to the illness that everyone brings home after gathering during
Well,
peak flu.
fun fact, this is the first time in 3 years I did not come back with COVID, which was really nice.
Adida.
Did you?
Yes, of course. I also was sick the week before I went, and I thought, okay,
Really?
my immunity is an all-time high. I'm going to be great.
What'd you have before?
Not the case. Just a cold, something, kids back in school, whatever they've picked up and
Sort of back in
coughed
school.
right into my face. So, yeah.
Yeah. How many days have they been in school in the past 3 weeks?
Full days, I want to say like 3, 4.
It's really hard to talk because like I don't have many people at my new org that live in my area that they just don't understand like how easily weather shuts down schools here. And so I think they're like, when I say my kids are at home, I think they think I'm just like super precious about transporting them to school or something if it's raining. And I'm like, no, like
I'm not.
we shut down when
Right.
it snows or ices.
Right. I'm
So,
like, my roads are clear. I'd be happy to take them to school, but
Yes.
no one will be there. So
yeah, I
home they stay.
yeah.
But
for
they did
many
go
a
back
day.
today for the first full day, which was nice.
They did 2-hour delay yesterday, but before that, their first day back at school after being off for 2 days was an early release day. And then the
Early
next day
release
was
is cruel and unusual, I think.
well, our kids are
personally.
in after school, so it's actually like there's no difference for us, which is nice.
That
But
is nice.
but it is crazy though. Like they just did early release on Wednesday, and then they had a delayed start for 2 hours.
Then welcome to the career world. Well, that's not how it is.
That is
So
not how it is. Yeah.
you are working.
So one of the things I want to talk about as it relates to SKO, just to kick off that conversation. Do you say SKO or do you say SKO?
I prefer SCO,
SKO.
but I've heard it pronounced both ways.
One of the funny things I found out about your sales kickoff this time around was at my new org, they don't call it sales kickoff. They're actually like kind of precise in describing it not as a sales kickoff, but it still is very sales kickoffy. But they call it go to markets a GTM summit, which I believe is what Insight renamed theirs this year. You guys rebranded
Yes,
to
it is.
GTM
That's
Summit,
exactly what
which
we
is really
called it
funny.
this year in an effort to embrace more of our go-to-market team, including marketing and customer success. And
Was Success not at it last year?
I don't believe they were as there or as strongly represented.
Yeah.
It actually kind of shined a light on that I feel like I need to get to know more of my customer success colleagues because there were a lot of faces that I did not recognize. And I realized that was probably the biggest difference is they were in attendance this year and I hadn't had a chance to meet them yet.
Yeah. They were not at ours, but a decent chunk of marketing was. But it is funny. Like that's I guess one of the things we'll get into is just how different sales kickoffs can be across organizations and what that can mean for like the content and stuff. But from a marketing like I feel like their product marketing can sit in different parts of the org, whatever. But if you have marketing in your title, like I just kind of feel like there are 3 groups of folks as it relates to sales kickoff. One, you're like persona non grata, gratis persona non, whatever. You're not invited. Nobody wants you there. You are begrudgingly brought along, or it is a third is a critical part of your duty. If you do a bad job of it, your job's at risk. So there's only 2/3 there, 2 parts of 2 groups of those that go to sales kickoff. And I do feel like wherever I've been, there's always been some level of FOMO felt if you're in the group of people, and I've been in that group of people who doesn't go to sales kickoff. Have you been in that group or you're in marketing and not going to a sales kickoff?
I actually have not been in that FOMO group.
Wow.
I know.
That is
Big
impressive.
deal, but came from smaller organizations or, organizations that were based in Raleigh. So there was
Hmm.
an opportunity to kick things off either, kind of around the headquarters, or it was a smaller team. So logistically getting
Less
everyone from the
expensive.
company or everyone from, yes, it ends up being quite an investment. Um, and it's just not feasible for larger organizations. So you got to kind of have to draw that line somewhere. So I've been fortunate.
Always. You've always been. Wow. Okay. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so, but I'm sure you've encountered folks like, right, might be out of that geographical region or they're part of marketing and didn't get prioritized for attendance, where they do kind of have that feeling of missing out. And I think especially, and maybe it's just become more acute during the post-pandemic or during the pandemic, where people want those like in-person connections. And this is one of those rare opportunities where the company is like funding and putting a lot of money towards getting people in front of each other and getting people together. So I feel like maybe that's driving some of the FOMO. Um, but
I
yeah,
think it's also that the type of event.
yeah,
Obviously there's business reasons that we're there. We're here to learn about the company's strategy. We're here to engage with your colleagues and hear the key messages. But it's also about that camaraderie. It's about that team building, which is kind of an intangible element. But there is a lot of building everybody up and having everyone believe in the mission, and I think that is something that can't really be done as effectively, at least through a virtual environment. And so kind of being there in the room, feeling the energy, there's walk on music, there's
yeah.
all the psychological things to kind of get you hyped up for the year. So
Now,
in that element, that is,
yeah.
you want to be a part of that.
That being said, you did not say that it had a good return on value or on investment. Yeah, no, I'm sure
I think
it's
it
like it's
depends.
really good.
It
I'm sure it
depends.
pays itself
I
back.
mean, I actually saw a stat, that was, well, like, did I say last time, like 90% of stats are made up, but it was talking about people who really enjoy their colleagues and enjoy working together end up being like 7 times more productive, report 9 times more happiness. Uh, and I think especially in a lot of software companies, there's a lot of change, there's a lot of transformation, there's a lot
Yeah,
of reasons to not be happy,
yeah,
if you kind of view it that way. So I think building that camaraderie, building that trust, I think it's hard to measure and quantify, but it's important.
yeah, yeah. Um, yeah, that's a fair point. I mean, especially like if we just think about like right now, my job is remote, but I don't even have a local office. And like that was one of the nice things about Insight was, people weren't going in a ton, but you could go in and do it, meet folks in person at the office. So anyways, as I was thinking about those three groups, one of the things that I was thinking of was like if and you as a people manager, something you would probably think about too is like how would they best justify getting an invite? Um, and for me, on the PMM side, it's you're contributing directly to something that's happening at the event. So whether or not that's a sale, one of the presentations, in a breakout session, or contributing to part of the keynote, any part where you're directly involved in the content that's happening at Sales Kickoff, I think is vastly improves your odds of doing it, and then being able to position yourself as someone who can actually help with the presentation, even if it's just a breakout, is another way to kind of get there to punch your own ticket there. What about from the more pure marketing side? Like, I'm curious, when would you kind of put your support behind getting someone to SKO if they weren't on the invite list and wanted to go?
I mean, I think it's a similar concept, right, as to what you just mentioned. So you could be working in events. We have design people always at SKO, there and ready to help with adjustments, et cetera. There's a really great opportunity if you work in social media, right, to document this and, leverage this moment with so many of your colleagues in one space to get sound bites, clips, and really make the most of it. So I think, from a marketing perspective, you can kind of take that angle as well. I think there's also, that value in, networking and understanding the relationships, especially on the demand side, right, where you do work so closely with sales and understanding what are they hearing, what are their priorities. Um, Even I actually have sat on some of these SKOs where they start doing mock pitches.
But yeah, yeah,
And Like, please
Practicing
don't
it.
include me in that. I'm in marketing and I don't really want to do that, but
Yeah.
even just being like, okay, we're not going to make you do that, but it's really helpful for you to sit in here and listen and hear the objection handling. So I've seen, I think there's a lot of growth too from just understanding how your sales counterparts are operating, their priorities, and what they're excited about.
Yeah. Um, if you're so that kind of ties into my next group of folks, which is you are invited. How do you like? And I think especially if you're early in your career, how would you go about making the most, or what guidance do you give to folks who are going their first time? Because there's a lot of there's a way to get nothing, like absolutely nothing out of SKO. Like it's not that hard. You can very easily go not paying attention, get really drunk every night. Um, how do you get the most of SKO if you're a marketer?
Yeah, I think that's a great question, and something that came up actually in a mentorship that I'm going through is kind of how do you make the most of these moments. And one suggestion that I thought was really smart was kind of going with an agenda in your mind of
Yeah,
what do you want to get out of it, aside from the agenda that they've set out. Okay, hey, I want to collaborate with my colleague on this one problem in person, and I really think just grabbing them and pulling them into a whiteboarding session would be super helpful. I'd like to introduce myself to my, new boss's boss, and I'd like to make a good impression and, get pick their brain about X, Y, and Z. I think going in with some of those tangible goals or things that people you want to see, conversations that you want to have can help you make the most of that opportunity. Obviously checking your agenda, and kind of engaging and attending the sessions that you
yeah,
are invited to.
yeah,
Uh, Nate, as someone who has built a lot of these sessions, I think you know exactly how much work goes into all of these
yeah,
and,
yeah,
time and effort and thought. So actually listening, engaging if there's Q&A sessions, asking questions, I think that's really valuable.
yeah.
Take good notes. They
Especially
always give you a little notebook, write
well, and
things down.
yeah, and I feel like they do always give a notebook. That is funny. The funny thing too is like if you're in marketing, there's maybe like the potential where you think, well, this isn't for me. This session is not for me. But there's a lot of opportunities to listen to how sales is interacting with the session, engaging and the questions they're asking that do or can inform what you can bring back. Like if I think too about um when you do sessions that are like product focused and sales is on and they're like asking questions about when is this coming, when is that coming, it helps you think about the conversation or understand some of the conversations they're having with customers or prospects and what's like top of mind for them as they're thinking about the buying process and stuff. So there's always the secondary part too of just getting closer to how sales is thinking and how they talk about what their problems are that I think is really valuable outside the session content itself. And the other thing too that you touched on, like the networking side can be tricky at sales kickoff because you're meeting with a bunch of people who might only know you by name and have never really interacted with you. And so it's like a high pressure first impression opportunity. And you can like pretty easily fall on your face too in those opportunities. And so it's being able to kind of share through to those people, like, what have you learned? Like, what's the value been for you in a way that's also not kiss ass or whatever. Um, and so they're just the opportunities to meet all these people across the org and several skip levels above where you are, and hearing how those folks are at the event. Um, the
Or even just
other,
share a
yeah,
common moment, right?
yeah,
You kind of meet with an executive, you guys are both in the lunch line and they make a funny comment or, something you kind of have that casual conversation. Those are things that kind of stick with people and they remember you. And, even if you don't have a chance to kind of get into those business conversations, even having those casual conversations are really valuable. And as someone who works remote first, you get a lot of that in the office and you don't really get that opportunity at home. So
yeah, you don't. And then also it's just like the opportunities sometimes just meet with your own team in a way that you don't normally get to these days. Like a lot of times there's opportunities to do a group lunch or dinner or some other kind of team building event. Like that can be really good. Mm. The other
I
thing I
think
would
looking at
say,
that
yeah,
agenda, oh, sorry, I'm just thinking, look at that agenda you mentioned, right? Kind of having some of these breakouts or, little sessions. Sometimes there are these, hey, we're going over sales tools and how to use them. I may not necessarily get a lot of value out of that, but if we know that ahead of time, we can kind of plan a session. Hey, it'd be really great to get the marketing team kind of off to the side. Let's talk about X, Y, and Z. What do we want to kind of bring back to our teams that didn't get the invite, but, it's important that they hear some of this messaging too. So you can use the most of that time too to, like you said,
Yeah.
build some side
Yeah.
chats.
One of the other things I think is a change from pre-pandemic is just the amount of travel folks get to do, especially on the marketing side these days. Like, I remember I started a job in 2020 and they were like, "Oh, you're going to be traveling like once a month once this pandemic's over," which, fun fact, it was not over for a very long time. But they were like, "You're going to
Just
be
got to
traveling
flatten
all
the
the
curve
time."
real quick.
Yeah,
Yeah.
just got to flatten that curve and then we'll be done. Um, and so thinking that I was going to get to travel, or I didn't really want to travel, but thinking that that was going to be a big part of like whatever a month working there and stuff. And that does not happen anymore. Like there just is not as much travel budget. And so one of one of the things that if you are not someone who does a lot of travel, um, definitely read your T&E packet in your company portal. So that you are up to speed, because there are oftentimes, especially for big corporate event things, there's different rules kind of too that then guide at what you can and can't expense. Like if they're providing lunch, like don't try to expense a lunch that day. Unless you're a salesperson, you're just paying for a bunch of people. It's like a team building thing. But there's a lot of cultural things I think about travel that maybe marketing folks aren't as in the loop on, just because they aren't doing as much travel anymore. And so, anyways, like just a call out to like if you're not used to traveling, this goes one of your first trips. Definitely read T&E and definitely just ask around. I think that's really important about what the kind of travel culture is and how and when to expense stuff and what those limits are. Um,
That's a great point. You do not want to be submitting that big expense ticket and get a big old rejection because you didn't understand what was allowed and what wasn't. So
Yeah, and fun fact, the at a place that had a fairly lax T&E policy, the one person I ever heard of getting fired from this company was because of expense. They were expensing like in-room hotel massages.
another thing that came up
Yeah.
was around, and not that anyone was doing this, but just that this has become a problem now with expenses, is around AI faking receipts. So, for
Oh,
example, someone goes out to an
goodness.
$150 dinner,
Hmm.
they AI the receipt and then submit it for $400. That will get you fired. It is not worth it. So,
My God.
keep your ethics, please.
Yeah. Oof. Don't do that.
Yeah, don't do
My
that.
gosh.
So, yeah,
Um, yeah.
not worth it.
Yeah, not worth it. Wow, that's crazy. So expenses can be a real pitfall. Also, like the way you get around town at like a sales or a big corporate event are sometimes a little different, or even like a big conference, than if you're just going to something smaller and you're more responsible for it. Like they expect you to carpool maybe, and even that. Like I feel like that culture has even shifted over the past couple of years, where there's a lot more expectation of carpooling than there was previously. Where previously you were just kind of, you could do whatever. Now they're like, oh, if you see someone from your company that you like, we expect you to get in a car together and
Hop
save
in.
some
Yeah.
money, which is funny. The other, so the, the last group, which is, I would argue, by and large, it is a less fun sales kickoff experience, which is you have to be there and it is part of your job to be there and present and stuff. Um, I say it's less fun because I do think there's whenever I've had to do that, I sometimes just cut out of stuff early so I can go up and prep.
You have
Or
to.
we're like working on slides really late and just kind of trying to finalize stuff because not everything gets hammered out before the event starts, even when you have lead time. I remember one time I had to do the event. The SKO was big enough that I had to do the same presentation twice for like different groups. So like so it's like doing like a matinee version and then like the
Who tuned in for the late night,
yeah,
Nate?
not many
PMM.
people. Neither session was super well attended, but I did it anyways. But yeah, like it like the pressure's different. You're in like there's always so many important people from your organization that will be watching your session, and so um,
Absolutely.
it is just part of your role at that point, and being able to prep and get your team aligned on all the stuff that they need to do. It just makes it functionally a different event than if you're just kind of there to learn and network.
Right. I know you and I were on a
So
panel together a couple of years ago at a SKO,
yeah, that's
if
right.
you recall.
The
Yeah, so
panel.
there it was not only that, but there was also rehearsals the night before too. So you have to kind of know where you need to
Was
be
there a
and cutting
rehearsal? I
in.
don't remember. Was I there?
Well, maybe you didn't come. So right.
I don't remember that.
You did great for winging it, but
Oh boy, I might have missed that.
it all
Was there a
worked out.
panel this year?
There was no panel this year.
Oh,
So I will say, actually, it was very different from how our organization has done it in the past, but it was kind of nice
mm,
because even folks that typically have to present content or prepare things were just invited to come. It was really more product led, so you still would have been on the hook. But myself, I got to just go and enjoy and listen and engage with the content, and I didn't actually have to produce anything, which was
nice.
different. Yeah.
Do you? So a couple thoughts. Just as we close out, what do you try to bring back to your team that doesn't get to go to a sales kickoff? As a leader, like what can you bring back?
It's a great question. And now, kind of 2 years running, we've done this where we have an kind of all hands of, my team, the directs and their directs. And we will do a presentation of kind of what you needed to know from SKO. And so we will
I like the rhyme.
collectively kind of, yeah, discuss, hey, what were some of the highlights? What were the cool things that happened? There's always a keynote session. Always, right? So they end up pulling in some big name that doesn't maybe necessarily have to do with what the company is doing. I think we had the Blue Angels guy, 2 years ago, right? But it often is
Yeah,
inspirational,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
And they kind of
yeah.
find a way to tie that back to the company message too. So I think that's always a really fun one to kind of be able to go and then repeat that message. Obviously, there's product breakout sessions, things like that. So many of us are sitting there with our phone, we're that guy, taking the photos, but it is for the benefit of my team that did not get to go so that they can see what was presented and kind of hear the key takeaways that they need to know.
Yeah. I will say, if you ask nicely, you can usually get the decks from folks, so you don't have to take the pictures. But it's good.
My experience, there's always like a several week lag between
Yeah,
getting the decks. So,
that
I'm
that
like,
could be true. Yeah.
yeah, so
So the keynote thing is funny. Have you ever? First of all, those keynotes can be real wild cards.
absolutely.
What's the best keynote you've? Do you have a best keynote that you've seen?
I think the most powerful keynote that I have seen, and this wasn't at an SKO, it was just at a conference, but the conference was around accessibility, and this was the first blind and deaf woman to graduate from Harvard. So she was very impressive, and it was really amazing to hear her story of resiliency, and then about the technology and the people who were able to help bridge the gap, taking words and then making it spoken word that then translate into braille. Like it's pretty impressive, what they did, but she couldn't have done it without these systems, and she couldn't have done it without the people that were around her. So it was a really inspiring story about accessibility, and just this is a person who had not, for these accommodations, been able to achieve all that she was able to achieve. So it
Wow. Yeah.
was one of those situations where it's not like a dry eye in the house and you're like, all right, this
Yeah.
is awkward. I'm crying in front of my coworkers, but it was, it stuck with me, and
Yeah.
it was a really powerful full keynote. So, it's a tough bar to,
Be a good SKO
yeah.
keynote. Like,
Right.
yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'll make that suggestion for next year. So how about yourself? Have you, is there any
I was
that
thinking
stand out to
about
you?
what sticks out more are the ones that are really awkward, and that I haven't enjoyed as much versus the ones that have been really. It's a tough. Well, I'll just say, like, it, to the credit of the folks who do those, and I know they get paid quite a bit of money for them, but like, it's a tough gig, I think, to land a message that'll resonate with these folks that you don't know, you'll never see again. It's like giving a commencement speech at a college, except it's like not even that inspirational either. Like, you can't be overly sentimental about it either. So you've got to kind of like walk this really fine line. Yeah, I remember the controversial ones. You know what's funny though is I remember at SAP's Sapphire last year, the who did the keynote, or not like the keynote, but their big kind of like guest
Hmm.
speaker was Jessica Alba.
When I think SAP, I think Jessica Alba.
Well, so fun fact though, they had a crowd at that keynote address, like that got people to attend it. There were people like rushing from their booths to make it to that thing
It's
on
like
time.
Dreamforce, with Metallica.
Yeah.
Nothing says Salesforce like
Cisco,
Metallica.
Cisco had Elton John a couple years ago for their musical guest.
The biggest name I probably ever seen is, do you know who Muggsy Bogues is?
Yes, yeah,
Okay. He
Charlotte
was our
Hornet.
keynote
Yeah,
speaker. Yeah.
really?
He was also in Space Jam. Just going to throw that one out there.
Right.
Well, we were breaking off our business unit and trying to, we were the underdog, right? Kind of small but mighty. That was the tie-in. So
So embarrassing for
small
him.
but mighty.
That's great.
Yeah.
Space Jam Bogues doing a keynote for
And
you.
he did a Q&A, which was cool.
Did he?
So,
Oh, okay. Yeah. You know what's
several
impressive
brave
is
souls
like
got to ask.
sometimes, and just like I feel like the real bummer of working in marketing is you do see behind the curtain on how events are done and the amount of kind of budgeting and penny pinching that goes into the decisions behind the curtains or whatever. But like sometimes there isn't as much prep as you might think for some of these sessions, and so I do feel like sometimes they're kind of extemporaneous conversations and questions that end up getting asked. So
Just hoping it stays on the rails, like just really
yeah.
winging
Like
a prayer.
in your marketing life, how many koozies have you seen purchased as swag items?
So many.
Yes.
So many hideous shirts.
It's always
Yeah.
like, what is the largest number of volume we can get for this amount of money? And it's almost always like socks or koozies.
Coolest swag that we had last year was Magic 8 Balls, which
Oh, I
are
forgot about
TSA
that.
compliant. Yeah, you remember that? Yeah.
Yes.
We were like, oh no, they're not TSA compliant. Turns out they are.
Are they?
Prices averted. So,
Why is that?
because of the liquid
Oh, the type
in the
of
ball.
No, but I mean like
It's
it's under the amount. Is that
it's
the
under
thing?
3 ounces.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
So someone's thought of this.
That's right. Boy, you should have filled them with like shampoo so that folks could then use it
Dual purpose.
dual
I know.
purpose. Okay, lessons learned. I know we do this session usually when John's here, but I'll make it a little different this time, which is a SKO lesson learned. Do you have one of those?
Don't be the drunkest person at SKO. Not that I've learned this lesson, but I've seen it. It's not pretty when the sun comes up the next morning. So
The largest org I worked at had a basically there like it was like a little security arm kind of that looked out for crises, and so especially when there was a big corporate event, they would either have people on the ground and or monitoring just like wherever we would have a bunch of people, and like a couple times like an employee would get into a fight and they would have to kind of like release information about that or something. You'd find out someone got into a fight and got arrested. But yeah, it's just it is a kind of a volatile environment. Like when you have that amount, like there's just a lot of free alcohol at
there's a
sales
lot of free
kickoffs.
alcohol. You know, the snacks are not always super plentiful.
Mhm.
That is a personal story. I missed all the chips were gone before. I only got
Yeah.
vegetables at the snack. I was very hungry. So make sure you eat and don't be the
Well,
drunkest person at
on that
SKO.
note, how hard fiber is to find at your average sales kickoff lunch, like just not there. Just would be nice. Fiber would be nice. Put that up back on the menu. Bring back fiber.
Yeah.
My
What's your lesson learned?
My lesson learned would be, I think this is a hill I'll maybe die on. SKO should be like the first week of February.
Later. Maybe March or April.
April? You think April?
We did a kickoff. We did a second half kickoff one year.
Yeah.
And I know that's tough if you have EMEA, right? But
Yeah.
we did a second half kickoff and it was great. No one had weather delays. Nobody was sick.
That's part
was
of it.
great.
Is like January. My last 2 sales kickoffs have been in Texas, and both times there have been kind of like some risk of travel delays and stuff in Texas.
Mhm.
So like if you can't get in and out of Texas due to
Or
winter
Florida.
weather, like where can you go? Yeah, Florida. But also like, so first of all, you have everyone coming back from like extended holiday stuff. Get back in the swing of January. Also, sometimes territories and like really kind of rev ops things have not been hammered out in the first month of the year. And so it's really helpful to have some of that extra time, get all that clarified, smoke test like new Salesforce stuff before you're going live with it. It just gives teams an opportunity to make sure they're all aligned before the big show. And I think if you have it really early after the holidays, it's just tough to be as polished as you want to be for a sales kickoff type event. And I don't really feel like February is super late. I mean, even March wouldn't be crazy. I've been at places where folks haven't had their territories or accounts until later than March. You know what I mean?
A lot of times the strategy's still being figured out in Q1. in many, many jobs, it's been almost like a Q5 where it's a little bit like a continuation of what they were doing in Q4 while everything gets figured out for the new year. And then
Right.
Q2 is when things really
Yeah.
shift.
And it does distract you from having a good January. Like I'll just say that. Like January is a tough month anyways, and it's a major distraction to getting like your business as usual stuff done and executed on properly.
In a
Because it
SaaS
just spins out so
business,
many
we all
teams.
know how early in the year is very, very important to
Very
do well
important. Very important.
because
And
otherwise you're
yeah,
making it up
you are.
the
Yeah.
rest of the year. So
Um yeah. So Kyrie, thank you for co-hosting. It was a great audition for being permanent guest. Just FYI. Um let John know being replaced.
yes, let him know. Sorry, John, you're out.
He lost.
Unless you let us do a makeover, then
Yeah.
you're back in.
Yeah. Um yeah, like an actual makeover, not like a do-over
Yes.
of his original
I will
audition
drive
for
to
Get Into
Asheville.
Market.
I will drive to
Yes.
Asheville.
He did try to burn you real hard in text messages before this, which was
He did.
yeah, it was rude.
Not the first time. Nice try, John.
Well, thank you very much for joining and doing co-host duties. It was really great to have you back. You can find more information about the podcast at productischange.com, and new episodes come out every Tuesday. Yeah, talk to you later, Kyrie. Thank you.
Thanks for having me. Happy SKO season.
Bye. I don't know how to turn this off. Oh, there it is.